Physical needs of primary importance include air, water, food, shelter, rest, and light. Of course, there are other physical needs that we have, such as companionship, goals, purpose, and recognition. Our life is not sustained by these things, but they certainly enhance living. And then there are needs that we develop as a result of habits, such as smoking, drinking alcohol, taking drugs, etc. Usually, habitual needs do not enhance life, but rather bring our lives into bondage. Some habits even become a matter of life and death because of the loss of skill to make choices for our well-being or because of abnormal dependency developed by habitual use. Our spiritual needs are of primary importance. In fact, our spiritual needs are of greater importance than our physical needs. This is because the consequence of neglecting our spiritual needs is so much greater than the consequences of neglecting our physical needs. In Matthew chapter 10, verse 28, Jesus says, "Fear not them which kill the body, but are not able to kill the soul, but rather fear him which is able to destroy both soul and body in hell." Physical death involves spiritual separation of the soul from the body. The body ceases to function and eventually decays. Physical life, as we know it, is temporary. In contrast, spiritual death is eternal. The result of spiritual death is eternity in hell. There's no experience worse than this. Revelation chapter 21 verse 8 describes this as the second death, in which a person is cast into the lake which burns with fire and brimstone. The first death is physical and the body no longer has awareness. It ceases to exist. The second death is spiritual death, experienced forever. The condemned soul will spend eternity aware of his damnation. When Satan tempted Jesus in the wilderness to make bread out of a stone, Jesus responded by saying, "It's written, man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word that proceedeth out of the mouth of God." Jesus was pointing out that there's much more to life than physical needs to be met. There are spiritual needs too. Both needs are important, but Jesus demonstrated in this incident that the spiritual needs are more important and should not be compromised because of physical needs. Jesus refused to make bread from the stone in order to satisfy his physical needs, because there would have been a compromise of doing right and yielding to temptation. In this case, the spiritual needs overruled the physical needs. We should learn the lesson from this incident that our relationship with Jesus Christ and our spiritual needs are of greater importance than our physical concerns. If our physical and spiritual needs come into conflict with one another, the spiritual needs should be met first. When our needs are not satisfied, we begin to experience anxiety and stress. You can probably relate to this to some degree around dinner time. Your stomach begins to churn and your thoughts become preoccupied with food. If you were to neglect eating, the anxiety experience would increase. At first it would just be a matter of want, but after a day or two, and certainly after a couple of weeks, it would be a matter of great concern to you. Your existence would depend upon getting nourishment. All of your attention would be focused on getting food. Your anxiety would be at maximum level. There would be only one thing on your mind: food. When our needs are not fulfilled, we experience anxiety. This is true for both our physical and spiritual needs. Oftentimes we are aware that something is wrong, but we don't know what it is. We may feel empty inside, lonely, or even restless. God has designed us with an anxiety mechanism that acts as an alarm when we have needs that are unfulfilled. This alarm doesn't tell us what the problem is. It only tells us that something is wrong. After prolonged hunger, anxiety increases until eventually it consumes us to the point of total concentration. For most of our physical needs, it's easy to interpret what the problem is and how to satisfy that need. For hunger, we eat. For thirst, we drink. For air, we breathe. But in some cases, a person doesn't correctly interpret the source of their anxiety, and consequently, they fail to apply the correct solution. For example, a person may experience anxiety over the loss of a friendship. Depression may occur, stress is experienced, and one of the solutions is to eat. Obviously, eating is not the solution to a lost friendship. The person may not even be aware of the connection between the lost friendship and their overeating. This is called substitution. Eating is being substituted for the loss of a friend. In some cases, sleeping is the preferred solution to the anxiety. But this too is a substitution and does not solve the real problem. Anxiety resulting from unsatisfied spiritual needs can induce all kinds of substitution solutions. People recognize something is wrong, but they're not aware of what the problem is. Some people experiencing spiritually induced anxiety try to escape the feelings by drinking alcohol or getting high on drugs. One of the most abused drugs today is aspirin and Valium, of all things. People rely on these crutches to make life more tolerable. Another form of escaping spiritually induced anxiety is to deny that spiritual needs exist. For example, some try to deny the existence of God and the reality of the spiritual needs of man. But denial doesn't make the problem go away. For some, this is the crutch of choice to cope with their anxiety. Others try to satisfy their spiritually induced anxiety with physical escapes, such as indulging in sex, materialism, entertainment, and work. They keep their thoughts preoccupied and the anxiety is more easily ignored. But these escapes don't solve the real problem, and the anxiety persists. Escapes are temporary and the anxiety returns, which leads to indulging in increased escape behavior, which often leads to addiction. Addiction then becomes another problem to cope with. This is a case where the crutch of life actually becomes a hindrance in life. Still others acknowledge the presence of spiritual needs and try to satisfy these needs on their own terms. Some try to please God or gods and higher powers with sacrifices and good deeds, thinking that by pleasing God, He'll show them kindness. Most religious systems in the world are based on systems of good deeds and appeasements to the gods of choice. The consciences of the members of these religious systems are assuaged by whatever means required. Many Christian and all of the non-Christian religions fall into this category. This is not a self-righteous statement on my part. Jesus said in Matthew chapter 7, 13 through 15, "Enter ye in at the strait gate, for wide is the gate, and broad is the way that leadeth to destruction, and many there be which go therein. Because strait is the gate, and narrow is the way which leadeth unto life, and few there be that find it. Beware of false prophets, which come to you in sheep's clothing, but inwardly they are ravening wolves. All paths but one lead to hell. Only through Jesus Christ on His terms can one be saved." Acts chapter 4 verse 12 says, "Neither is there salvation in any other, for there is none other name under heaven given among men whereby we must be saved." And Jesus is recorded in John 14:6 saying, "I am the way, the truth, and the life. No man cometh unto the Father but by me." The Bible is clear on this point. There's only one way to satisfy spiritual needs that we have. Only Jesus Christ can satisfy our needs. He satisfies our need for spiritual food and water. He is the breath of life and the light of men. He's the shelter where we can find true refuge and rest. Apart from Jesus Christ, there is no fulfillment, only anxiety and death. This is the way we're designed. God made us with the need for food and water, air and light, shelter and rest. Only by applying the correct solution to our lives can we be satisfied. Have you found peace in Jesus Christ?